Khorne. Khorne. What to say about Khorne? Well, he's fine. He's fine. His campaign's fun if you just want to blast heavy metal music and roll over the world. Though he is extremely momentum based, and he has a raiding faction. He doesn't build too much of an empire. He usually just destroys other people's stuff. It should be a pretty fast-paced campaign. The more you kill, the more armies you can spawn. The more armies you can spawn, the more stuff you can kill. On and on and on. You're a freight train that never stops. It can be a fun campaign. I personally got a little bored of it about halfway through. He is a little one note, but if you're down for that note, you're down for the whole ride. Get ready to charge things with high armor. Khorne is a tricky pick in multiplayer. Domination, I heard he does fine because his heavy armored, high leadership infantry can hold points for quite a while, and he bumps and grinds fine. But with the meta going towards a little bit more ranged factions, Khorne will always struggle when that is the case. In land battles, Khorne has an identity crisis that holds him back. He has some of the most expensive infantry in the entire game, with 850 Chaos Warriors of Khorne, 800 Bloodletters, and now with the recent DLC, he did get some cheap Marauders of Khorne. They're okay, and they improved his chances a little bit, but he still just doesn't have the killing power. His roster is going to be smaller than most people's, because the demon factions in general are pretty expensive. But then they're, like, tankier than they are killy, so you're just this small, slow-to-die box that doesn't really do too much damage. Your cavalry options are okay, but incredibly expensive. Just stupid expensive, with no healing. Because Khorne doesn't do magic, so he has no healing options for these Chaos Knights, which makes them trade ineffectively versus any other heavy cav faction in the game, because you almost always have support spells or support healing for them. They just struggle. They struggle a lot. Their monsters and beasts are fine. It's some of the best part of their roster, but it's just not enough. Khorne's gimmick is he doesn't have magic, but magic is so crucial to function in the Total War Warhammer series and land battles that he really suffers without it. And like some of his demon units having 25% spell resistance it's just not enough. It's not enough to justify not having magic. So he really suffers. His roster either needs to get much less expensive or much more killy to make up for the lack of spells. I think they just undervalue how great spells are in Warhammer in general. So that's where Khorne is currently struggling. How you can win as Khorne is take either Scarbrand or an Exalted Bloodthirster and try and carry the entire game with them with optimal single entity fights and cycle charging, or you could take Valkia and the Herald of Khorne, or the Herald of Khorne and get a wider army and try to buff them up to victory. Either is okay. Again, Khorne is a perpetually low tier faction in land battles until he gets some serious just like identity reworks about how he's going to function in this game. If you do go with a wider army, Marauders mixed in with Bloodletters can be a good way to rush the opponent. Chaos Warriors are a holding unit, so they do have a hard time in a rush. The only exception would be Halberds versus factions that spam large. Ogres. But, yeah. You don't usually want to rush with Chaos Warriors. They're just too slow, and they're built to last, not built to kill. So go with Marauders and Bloodletters if you're charging the enemy. Skirmish Cav is almost a must. Khorne's Air Force is fine, but not incredible, and without any support, you could get air cheesed. That and blobs and boxes are very good against Khorne because of his low ranged prowess, so taking the range you do have can get you gusto, big mucho gusto value. So I would always max out on his skirmish cav. His chariots are okay. His chariots are fine for box busting. His heavy cav will probably lose most heavy cav fights just because of the support and healing we said earlier, but one or two is fine for trying to bunker bust some things. Fleshhounds of Khorne are cost effective, so are dogs and furies, though the furies do keep getting cost increases every round, so you might have trouble. Generally, spawn and infantry are going to be your way to break through anything. That's the best I got for you. If you're fighting Khorne, cheap archers. If you bring cheap archers, you'll be okay. Try to dominate the mobile game, because if Khorne takes the fight against you, he's definitely paid more money than you for it, so if you invest in the mobile game, you can beat him out on value there, and then control the game with your agency. Or you can try an air cheese, though I did just mention Khorne's probably going to bring max skirmish cav, so you'll want something to deal with that. Yeah. Lord sniping versus Khorne used to be rather effective, but now with the skirmish cav and he can actually protect himself from the air, I actually don't think Lord sniping is particularly effective against Khorne. Just bring some bodyguards, bring some anti-large units to defend whoever your lord is from Scarbrand or the Exalted Bloodthirster, and you'll be fine. And then focus the rest of your army on killing his army. And then Scarbrand will be alone versus the world in the end, and he will get slowly dragged to the dirt. It'll be fine. Right. Yeah, that's about it. Cheap archers, anti-large bodyguards for your lord. Win the mobile game if your faction cares about cavalry at all. You'll be okay. Roar! Subscribe, yes, yes.